What's new in 2017 PDM? Take a quick overview. A version overwrite we're going to introduce. Rollback, reference handling, so lots of new things happening with rollback. Database replication, that's another big one. We'll be able to not only replicate the files but replicate the databases for those larger customers with high latency environments. There's some Web 2 enhancements, some improvements to tasks. We've expanded where custom columns are available. We can now copy group permissions and members when creating a new group. Some preview tab enhancements. Service pack compatibility that will help a lot of our customers and be able to upgrade at more frequent times. Some reference tree enhancements, kind of a bonus round, a bunch of delighters that we'll go through. Some nice projects there. And we'll take a look at the new product integrations. So for version overwrite, so the use case would be set, when you want to set variables through workflows and dispatch. So that's one area where you create a lot of data is in setting variables in workflow and possibly dispatch. End of the day check-in. So if you want to check a file in before the end of the day, and you necessarily might not want to because of all the versions that it would create. So with version overwrite, the user would be able to overwrite those non-important versions. Or if you have small errors or typos that you want to do on released files and you don't want to run them through a whole workflow process just to fix a minor spelling error, you'd be able to check the file out, fix it, and check it back in without having to run it through a workflow to keep the revision tag there. And if you want to attach the latest version of child references, so in a big assembly you might make lots of changes to the files, the children files, and you don't want to update the assembly every time. To create a new version of that assembly, you can check the assembly out and check it back in under the same version. Benefits: it'll reduce vault and database size by not having so much information there. It'll certainly help performance. We see a lot of customers with over 100 versions of the files, and most of them say they don't need maybe 10% of them. So it'll enable more frequent check-ins and offer some compatibility with Workgroup, because Workgroup does have that overwrite capability today. So it's going to be a folder and a state permission. So at each state and in each folder, it would be a permission that a user could have. So some states you might not want to offer overwrite, like in a release state, but in a work in process, maybe you do. It's in a transition action, so just a checkbox in the transition action dialog. Any new version that would be created in that transition would be overwrite the previous one, and also in dispatch. So if you check in a file through dispatch, you can have the option to overwrite. It'll also be in the API. The version indicators. So once we have the ability to overwrite a version, we need to let other users know that they might not, even though they have a version on their machine that still is the latest number, it might not be the actual latest because somebody else checked it in and overwrote it. So as you can see in that first line, that's what it'll look like. It'll be a dash for the version number, but it'll have the red clock letting them know that they don't have the latest version. We'll also mark parent references that they need to be updated, just like if you created a new version of a child component. So if you look farther down, the old version just means that I've got 3 of 4 here, and at that one, and it still shows the red clock. Another one with a dash but no with the question mark icon, that lets the user know that they don't have one in their local cache. So the user will be able to easily tell what they have in their cache if something happened. It'll also be tracked in the history, so when a user does overwrite the version, it'll be available in the history, so people will know when it happened and who did it. It's also a warning, so you can block a user from checking in a parent file if one of the reference files has been overwritten and they haven't updated their cache to the latest version, to the then latest version. So for rollback has been something that companies have tended to stay away from because of some of the complexities. So in 2017, we're enabling the rollback of an entire structure to a previous as-built version. In 2016 and prior, had to do one file at a time. And also when you rolled back a child, like a part, and the drawing, and it had a drawing referenced it, the latest version of the drawing would then reference nothing. So if you looked at contains on the drawing or the where used on the part file, you wouldn't see any type of reference. So the user now has the ability to repoint that reference. So the idea is you might create a new version here, and then you'd roll it back to the previous version, and you'll have a choice. The user will have a choice on what files they want to roll back and which ones they don't. So the way it looks in the UI, you'd be able to select the different files, the whole tree, or individual files for rollback. You'd also be able to select different states or things that happen to that file under that same version, because a lot of times there might be state changes and without a version change, and you want to be able to give the user the ability to put it back to the exact state that they want. So you select the files, you can select the state, and so on. So database replication, another, like I said, big project with lots of benefits. Reduce the impact of high latency for many operations. So the idea is that read operations that happen in the vault, such as folder browsing, looking at contains, where used, bill of material, and so on, all those are read operations, and those could be directed to secondary read-only databases. The write operations like check in and check out, change state, those type of operations would all be directed towards a primary database, and then the primary would update the secondaries. So it'll allow us to have very good increased scalability. If you look at the graphic there in this scenario, the database server might be in Germany, with the secondary servers in the U.S. and India, and the China location and the India location are connected to the secondary database in that area for the read operations. It'll also work on a load balancing. If there's a high usage environment with lots of users in a single location, you could also have a secondary database that could handle a lot of the read operations to offload some of the heavy usage of a single database. So that's again where you'd have secondary servers in a primary location. It'll reduce locking and blocking of tables. And increase disaster recovery, because read-only copies are full copies of the database, so that'll automatically happen if the main server does go down. It does require SQL Server Enterprise Edition because it uses the always-on availability group technology that's built in. The licenses are not being offered by SOLIDWORKS; they're just too expensive by the time we would buy them from Microsoft and resell them to the VARs, and then so on. The customers could get them much cheaper by buying them on their own from their Microsoft supplier. Each site does need to have its own license for SQL Enterprise, and it's only offered under the core model, so they have to license it per core. There's not a CAL license for it. So how do you install it? You would update the database to point to create secondaries in Microsoft Management Studio or SQL Management Studio. Inside the PDM administration tool, there'll be a node, a replication node that will show at all times, and under that you'll have archive and database. We'll be able to set archive is what we've had in the past, but we only showed it when there was a replicated database. Now we're just going to show it completely for every vault, every professional vault, I should say. And then you pick which users and groups are attached to what secondaries, and a lag time between the primary and the secondary. So in high latency environments, you might want to specify a lag time, and if the secondaries aren't updated in that time period, all the users would be automatically connected back to the primary, because there could be a network outage or a significant slowdown. So we have a lag time that will be used to manage that. There's also synchronous and asynchronous settings. So synchronous waits for the secondaries to update. So you would do this in a high usage LAN environment where you have great connection but just lots of users, because that happens instantly. But an asynchronous is where the primary doesn't wait for the secondaries updates to complete. It sends the instructions to the secondaries and can accept new commands. That would be used in a high latency WAN environment. From a Web 2 standpoint, we have a new WebGL viewer that we're going to introduce in the Web 2 products. So it's dynamic viewing in all browsers. So we only had it with Internet Explorer. Now we have it with every browser that's supported. There's no plugin, nothing to load into the browser, no caching required. We've improved the document preview, the general document preview. So what you're looking at here is an Excel file. In previous releases, this would have really just looked like a print preview. You would have seen partial sheets if there were big sheets. You wouldn't see any tabs. They would just be included as more pages. So now with 2017, it really looks nice for Office documents and other things. There's some more file formats we're going to support, and we can preview multi-sheet DWG, G's missing there, but and DXF file formats. And another thing with Web 2, we're going to allow an option to restrict downloads for certain users and groups. So if you have certain users that you don't want to download the files, you can put them in there and they won't have the download rights. So from tasks, we are introducing a 3D PDF task to support MBD. You'll be able to specify your themes. It's built into the current convert task. You can select your themes, the 3D views, the primary views, and so on. You can allow the user to change these views, and we are, in addition, we are finally going to introduce the Office to PDF tasks. I know we've been long awaiting for it. I think I've had it on the What's New for a couple of years now. Unfortunately, it's just was slow going. We had lots of issues that we needed to work through, but we're almost there. We're at the final countdown, so that's going to happen for 2017. We'll convert Word, PowerPoint, and Excel files to PDF. It'll update custom properties through if you got any link fields or macros, and also DWG file format to PDF. We'll be able to handle those too through the use of DraftSite Pro or Premium, because you need the API to support the making of a PDF from DraftSite. So great things there on tasks. One more thing, we are now able to add variables to the output file name. Before we only had certain variables we could add, but now we can have access to all the variables. Expanded custom columns, change state. This was actually added to 2016 SP3. We had it for all the other dialogues, but we weren't able to put it into the change state dialog and the get dialog. So in 2017, it does add the get dialog, and like I said, change state was added to 2016 SP3. Copy group permissions, pretty straightforward. When you create a new group, either from Active Directory or from PDM logins, you can copy the permissions as well as the members. So setting up a new group based on another one will be very easy, which is very hard to do today. So from preview, so we are working on a new UI. It will be the new eDrawings updated look UI that we see in full eDrawings. You'll be able to choose your unit of measure. Now it only defaults to the millimeters. It'll also default to the file setting, so if the file's in inches, that's what it'll go to. You'll be able to change the background color to match whatever setting you use in the full eDrawings. And when the file card preview, when you turn that on, you'll see that list of data shown on the right-hand side of the preview. If you disable that, the information goes away, but that white area, that bar area, still stays. So you don't gain anything. You have to slide that over. So in 2017, when you turn the file preview off, everything disappears, so you have that full area to use for previewing the file. Service pack compatibility. This will be great for our customers that want to be able to update PDM servers without going to every client, or conversely going to and upgrading a SOLIDWORKS client to a new service pack, or a PDM client to a new service pack for somebody that might having isolated issues without updating everybody. So this will add a lot of flexibility for our customers. Reference tree, so subparent nodes with multiple references, a little bit of a mouthful, but in 2017 we're being very smart about the way we show these things. In this case, this drawing has a view of an assembly and a part that isn't contained in that same assembly. So in 2017, this is the way it'll look. You'll have that subparent node shown above the part file as well as above the assembly, because it references both. In 2016, we would show that file twice with no subparent. We wouldn't show the drawing at all, attached to that part, only that it was at a certain level. So you can see those two entries there for the same part file. A little more confusing. Also, when multiple drawings referencing the same model, so in 2017 on the top, that's the drawing that that references that part, and that part's also referenced by that other drawing. In 2016, the file you selected winds up being the second one, not the top one, and that was confusing customers. Sometimes the files they selected weren't shown at the top, so we'll handle that very well in 2017. For our bonus round, we got a few delighters here we can go through. So rename support and dispatch pro. So before we can move, now you can move and rename a file. Lots of demand for that one. You can search for local files, so you can right-click in Windows Explorer in the white space, and then you can search for local files. It'll show you any files that are local that have not been yet added, so you can add them straight away. You can change categories even. It's an admin-only option right now, but this will help our workgroup users that come over and go to PDM Standard where there's no categories that want to move to Pro and then assign categories. So you'll be able to do that through the admin. Search card formula input. The input formula didn't update when you added information to a field. So in 2017 that'll actually work. That's good news for that. And the settings in copy tree and move tree, copy trees in standard and professional, move trees only in professional, it'll remember all your settings for include simulation, include drawings, preserve relative paths, if you want to check in, what your check-in comment is. So that will remember that, so users won't forget to adhere to company preferred methods. And the reset all button will reset affects all setting, not just the file name and location. And we have the option now of turning off that pop-up. That was kind of a nice idea, but I think it tended to start to annoy people, so now you can turn it completely off. So from product integrations, new things coming with electrical. So we've got some new commands that are going to be available in the resources panel to do the new projects, open, save, and synchronize the parts. A bunch of new things here, including a BOM synchronization that will create a BOM of virtual parts in PDM, so you can have a total synced mechanical BOM and electrical BOM when you're using 2D schematics. Some other projects there, some other functionality there for if DWG files that have been output have been modified inside the vault, there'll be a warning to let users know that the DWG files are out of sync with the project. And also for the 3D integration to PDM Professional, so a lot of new stuff there with synchronizing parts and being able to save the electrical assembly at different levels of the assembly instead of just at the top. Some new license types. Some add-on licenses for PDM Pro. There'll be licenses for cat editor, contributor, and viewer that do not have SQL, so there's no CAL licenses tied to these. It'll be used primarily to add on to PSL licenses where SQL is already licensed, so you don't need to add more CAL licenses if you have a PSL, so you'll be able to get some viewers and contributors mainly for a lower price than you would if you had to buy the whole license including the CAL. And some customers who already own their own SQL Standard or Enterprise licenses, they can get PDM Professional for a little bit lower cost. We're also going to be introducing a server-only license, a runtime restricted server-only license, so you can have a second server for failover or a second server for doing testing and so forth. So that'll also be on the list as well.